That's a big ass fish. That's a monster, Mike. Good job.
And that's why we're obviously outdoorsmen. And it's morning again, and that means another First Light Talk, and this is First Light Talk number 25. Good morning, everybody. I am Mike with Obviously Outdoorsman, and today's topic is self-filming your own hunts, tips around self-filming, and just how you can start self-filming if you've never done it before and you want to get into it. But it's a cold one out there this morning. There's frost everywhere down in Florida. I feel like I'm back home in New Jersey. It was like 30 degrees yesterday, and I know Jersey was like 2 degrees with a real feel of -10 because of the wind chill. But you know what that means for Florida with this super cold, frosty weather? You might as well just be organizing your tackle for the next couple days until it gets warm again, because the fishing's going to be tough. And up north, you got hard ice like you have had for the past couple of weeks. You guys are you gotta stay warm. So have your hand warmers and just make a shanty, bring out your ice tent and bring a space heater or grill with that wind chill out there, or just stay home by the fire. But you guys have opportunity to fish. The fish are going to be active through that ice. Get out there and just slay and get a nice fish fry. I know Robbo was out there yesterday. He caught like a bajillion perch. Him and a good buddy of ours, Maddie, got a bunch of perch. They had a nice fish fry, and they slayed it up yesterday through the ice. But if you've ever thought about getting into filming your own hunts but don't really know where to start, or if you've tried but have had difficulty doing it, then you're in the right place. Getting your harvests on film not only has benefits to help you after a shot, but it's gratifying to rewatch your hunt and relive the memories. I've been self-filming now for a number of years, and I've picked up a bunch of tips and tricks of doing it effectively and conveniently, and just how to do it effectively. But I've been self-filming really since I started hunting. It's always just been something I was interested in, just rewatching the hunts, being able to go on a hunt and then come home and show my friends, show my father, show my family. And it's just something I've always been interested in. So I've had a lot of failures around self-filming, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. There are some instances where it's like just screw this camera. The deer don't come in. They know the camera's there. I know so many people that don't want to bring a camera into the woods because they swear that the deer know when you bring a camera and they don't come in. And then when you don't bring a camera, that's when the buck comes in. I swear by it. Sometimes me and Rob feels that way around fishing. If we record with a GoPro, then we know we're not going to have a great day. But if the GoPro dies, yeah, we know we're going to catch a giant fish. That's just normally the luck of the draw. But around hunting, I've been doing it for probably about 10, 11 years now. And I love it, just getting the shot on film and rewatching and reliving the memories. But around the shot, right? A big benefit of getting a shot on film, and this is just away from the fact that you're trying to record for just memories and maybe trying to post it on YouTube or get it on TV, blah, blah, blah. But a big benefit of getting a shot on film is that then you have the privilege to rewatch the shot as many times as you want to know exactly where you hit the animal. And if it's a questionable shot without the film, sometimes you may make the wrong decision on whether to let the animal lay overnight or how long you need to give the animal to expire. And questionable shots, that film could make or break it. All right, there are so many times where we will rewatch the footage like 30 times, at 30 to 50 times before making a decision, and send the video to some buddies and get their opinion on it. But for example, my Winterbow 9-pointer a couple years back, I made a quartering 2 shot, and in my mind, perfectly right behind the shoulder, but it didn't have a lot of penetration. So I hit this deer. I was at full draw for like a minute and a half or a minute, at least a minute. And when he came around this tree, he basically stopped and was staring in my direction because I was already at full draw and I was trying to settle my pin after holding it for a minute. And I settled behind the shoulder. I didn't want to hit that shoulder because I knew it's just basically a shield, and I didn't didn't want a chance putting an arrow punching it through the shoulder. So I put behind the shoulder as close as I can to the shoulder. It wasn't a hard quarter two, but it was hard enough to where I didn't double lung him right behind the shoulder. So I stick him right behind the shoulder, and I didn't get a lot of penetration, probably about half the arrow. And this deer, like I knew I made a perfect shot for the angle I had, but the deer ran out to about 120 yards and bedded down to where I couldn't see him. And I just watched him in the tree where I last saw him. And once it got dark, I didn't see much, so I backed down and I went home to rewatch the footage with family and friends. And I sent the footage to a bunch of people because I just didn't know. Because I was like, in my mind, it's like, that's a questionable shot. I don't know if we should go in there now. I don't want the coyotes to get to him. And if he was dead right there, then I'm gonna feel bad if I just let him lay overnight and I couldn't have just grabbed him last night and had a sleepless night. I could have slept if I just went in there and got him if he was down. But we came to the conclusion that I definitely got one lung and liver, and not to spook the deer that night to go back in the morning and let him lay overnight. And in the video, when he runs off and stops, he was extremely hunched, like he just got hit hard. And he was ready to bed down. And we knew exactly where he laid or where we last saw him just from the video alone. So we had a good starting point to go back in the morning on. And when we went back in the morning, I found the arrow broken off and the deer not where he was last on video. We spanned out and combed through the thick crap, and we looked for him. We just spread out because I believe it rained overnight or snowed or something. So there wasn't a lot of blood. And old Eagle Eye Ray ended up finding him within like 15 minutes of looking. And when we came up on this deer, there was icicles hanging from the mouth, 80 yards from his last spread. And when I went to gut him, he was still warm on the inside. All right, he died within a couple of hours, and I'm talking about within a couple of hours for him to still be that warm on the inside. And it was a cold night, which is why like icicles were hanging from his mouth. So if I didn't have the footage to rewatch and get everyone's opinions because it looked like a great shot, I probably would have waited like 2 hours and went back and that ended up bumping the deer and maybe never finding him, or pushed them so far, maybe pushed them into a creek, pushed them somewhere I couldn't find them with there being not a lot of blood. And it would have just made it extremely difficult to find him. So just self-filming your hunt for that aspect is a huge advantage, just to shoot and rewatch. All right, Rob's early bow buck this year, he placed a shot basically at last light, and the footage we had wasn't great, but it was something to go off of. And when he like shot the animal, he felt really good. He felt really good about the shot. And me just watching it, and I was like, ooh, that was a little bit high or a little bit back. I forget which one. I think it was a little bit high. But we shot, and I followed the animal after he shot. I followed where he went, and we ended up hearing some type of crashing. But we don't know if it was him or if he crashed or he just fell through some stuff. But when we got down, we gave the deer like 20 minutes. We did not even go look for him. We walked straight to the truck, and we watched the footage. And I mean, we watched the footage closely on loop for like 50 to 100 times. We sat there for like a half hour just clicking and clicking, trying to see and get some hope on where exactly it was. But we sent it to a couple of our buddies, and they were saying, that deer's dead. That deer's dead. And we were like, do we give it some time though? And they're like, no, I think that's a pretty good shot. And Rob talked me into going back in the woods, and we ended up like losing where he last was, so it was hard for us to pick up the blood trail. And we got back in there, and we ended up finding the deer probably right where we last saw him from the stands. That crashing was him, and he just rolled over. He was dead very, very quick. And we have an issue in there with coyotes and foxes and everything else. There's a ton of coyotes in there, and they are ruthless. If you're gutting a deer, they come up on you. When we gutted this deer, after we found them, we had a fox come into like 15 yards, and then as we started dragging them out, there was just fox and coyote following us the whole way. We would shine the lights, it would be eyes, and then the eyes would dip out, and then be like, oh, 2 sets of eyes, and then they would dip out, and then we were just like, screw it, don't look at the coyotes, let's just get out of here. And we got like 50 yards from the truck, and I'm like, Rob, what's that in the trail ahead of us, and he shines the light, and it's like just a beastly coyote. It was like a wolf-sized coyote. And then we panned left with the flashlight, and it was just like eyes, 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 and it was just like, oh god, they got the pack on us. So we just put our head down and we powered out the last 50 yards uphill with the buck and got him out of there. But if we didn't have that footage, then we really had no basis on where we really hit the buck. And if he did hit the deer a little farther back, then we would have known to let the deer lay overnight. The deer would have got shredded by coyotes, but at least we wanted to just kick them and kick them and kick them, trying to find them that specific night. So it's just having a great reference point just from filming. But if you want to self-film effectively, the biggest problem people tend to have is that it's hard for them to keep the animal in frame while they try to shoot. They center the animal, then they draw their bow, and then the animal walks out of frame, and they either have to choose to reset and recenter the animal in the frame or shoot the animal out of frame. And depending on the type of hunt, whether it's blind, tree stand hunting, or spot and stalk, or hunting trails and the rut, or hunting over bait, if you're allowed to hunt over bait, it is one of the easiest ways to self-film. All right, their attention is not on you, and the deer isn't moving. You have all the time in the world to just center the deer in frame on camera and take your time on the shot and just make a good shot. And if you're hunting without bait and just hunting trails and deer that doesn't have a purpose to stay in range long, then the key is to lead the deer enough to where they're walking into frame, and while they're walking towards it, you're drawing back, and when the deer gets in frame, that's when you drop the old meh and stop them and shoot. Another tip for my self-filmers, when it comes down to the shot, zoom out, all right? I know everyone wants to get that perfect frame, centered in the frame, and they're just trying to get as much action as they possibly can. And I've seen a lot of people film their big buck walking all the way in, walking all the way in, walking all the way in, like super zoomed in, just to like get some really nice crisp footage. But the issue is when you're more focused on the footage than actually shooting the animal. So you're zoomed in all the way, and the deer is now at like 30 yards, and now you have to zoom out and set up. All right, get some video of the deer walking in, and just once it starts getting into range, like, or close to it, like 50 yards, and he's still coming closer to you, then start backing out on the camera. Your bow should be in your hand, and you should be like one-handed filming at this point. And if it's at like, if you're hunting over a trail and it's like a 20-yard shot, and that buck's coming up that trail, and he's got no purpose to stay right under you, and he starts walking on, and he could just walk right on past you. That's when you zoom out a little bit. So probably just zoom out double what you're in frame on. So it's just a big, large frame, and the deer is a little bit smaller. So just zoom out a little bit, lead the deer. So if the deer's coming from your right to your left, put the camera probably about 10, 15, 20 paces in front of him. And when that's when you just leave the camera over there off the deer. And then you get ready, and then as soon as that buck crests into frame, draw back, stop him while he's in frame, check to make sure he's in frame, and then just let it rip. All right, that's the purpose of zooming out. And then if in your video editor program later, you could always zoom in. As long as you have a pretty good camcorder or camera, then you can make that happen. But I see so many people focused on the camera angle, and then they screw up the shot. They fuck up the shot because they just want to get them on camera. So yes, it's a very important aspect, and in my mind, it's almost second nature for me to like just turn the camera on and follow the deer for everything and just make a quick shot. I had a big issue with my biggest buck ever, where I was 6 yards from this deer, and the opening I had out of my little makeshift blind, I had the tripod with my little camcorder there, and there was really no way I could turn the camera left or right. It was just dead center in that hole, and just whatever's right in front of the blind. So I waited for this buck to come in. He came in, he pushed off another big buck, and he basically wanted to fight. His ears went back, and he turned, and he was center frame. But he was stopped center frame, and I couldn't draw back because he was just staring at me. So as soon as he took a step, I had to draw back and shoot within like a half a second. As soon as I hit full draw, my pin was on his shoulder and I squeezed, and I barely got the shot on camera. All right. And for me, as long as I get something on film for me to remember and for me to post for you guys, all my fellow New Jersey hunters and all just my fellow hunters across the country, then as long as I have something, then I'm happy with it. And I knew the deer was in frame when I drew back, and I just quickly glanced at the camera and I saw his head was already out of frame. I just made it quick and I got everything on film, but it was definitely almost heartbreaking to get that being off camera. But the fact that I got everything on camera was that much more fulfilling. So you just got to make sure you lead the deer, let them walk in the frame, and then you shoot if you're only hunting trails. But if you're over bait, you have all the time in the world to let them come in, start eating, get settled, zoom in to your likelihood, and then draw back slow. Don't get busted. And just settle your pin, let it rip, and then grab the camera again and follow where the deer goes to get the rest of the film. But for equipment, for beginners, there's only a couple of things you need. All right, if you don't need to get everything right off the rip, if you just want to start filming your own hunts and you haven't done it before, there's only a couple of things you need. All right, you need at least a decent camcorder. And the low end price ones now, they're pretty solid. They're overall pretty solid camcorders. All right, they're not gonna be able to like film the next Marvel movie, but they're pretty good cameras that you could just get away with and film a lot of your hunts. All right, I still use a Canon Vixia. I forget the model number on it, but it's a pretty small camera. It's like 5-6 inches, and it works for me. It's tight, compact, and it's just very convenient for me to bring out up in the tree, bring it around, and it's not big and bulky. I could carry it myself and not take up too much of my backpack room. So if you just pick up a decent camcorder and make sure you carry 2 to 3 batteries, because on them cold days when you're in the woods, them batteries die quick. All right, it's just the way that it is. It's not even like any camera's fault. And a big tip for that, don't keep the batteries in your hunting pack on them super cold days. Take the batteries out of the pack and put them in your pocket, put them in your hoodie, put them by like a little hand warmer. Just keeping them warm off your body heat tends to keep them lasting a little bit longer. But then, you know, as soon as it comes out and goes into the camera, it gets ice cold and it starts killing the battery very quickly. So just make sure your batteries aren't dead before you even put them in the camera from that cold. But again, make sure you have a big SD card, at least a 16 gig or more. All right, sometimes I will use an 8 gig, but I have a bajillion SD cards, so it doesn't matter if I use 7 8 gigs or 116 or 128 gig. And this SD card, just throw in your camera and just have it so you don't have to worry if you have SD card room or run out of SD card space. You just don't want any of that. I've had times where I am filming. I am perfectly filming. We are moments from the shot taking place, and here he comes, and it's like, okay, shoot him on 3. 1, 2, bzz, camera dies. Or camera SD card full. Seconds, a millisecond before the shot, the camera turns off or is full of memory and it stops the video. That is one of the most worst feelings ever if you've never experienced that, and it sucks. I've experienced it 1, 2, probably 3 times. But make sure you have a big SD card and have backup SD cards just in case you lose it, or if it ends up getting full, you don't have to worry about anything. And now that cam is going to be for 90% or 95% of the hunt. All right, your camcorder that you buy, that is going to consist of most of your hunting filming. All right, your good camcorder. And then if you want to get good pictures for like just aesthetic and just good pictures in general, whether you're making a YouTube video or a TV show, then you're going to need a pretty good just camera-based camera. And for the people that are just starting out, if you get a good camera-based camera that has decent video quality on it, if you get one that does both, that's a big advantage as well. You don't need to get a strict camcorder, but you could just get a nice camera that takes good video and pictures, and you could just go that route. But if you're getting more serious, you normally have to get a a strict dedicated camera for pictures and camera for video. That's normally how it works. So being that this camcorder or just your one camera is going to take 95% of your filming, but while that camera is focused on the animals, if you want either a POV angle or an angle on you drawing back or whatever you're doing in the tree or blind, or just good B-roll footage, then you're going to want to have some type of action camera. And the two that are best from my experience is either GoPro or Tacticam. And both of these cameras have a plethora of mounts to go on your bow, to go on your head, your chest, octopus mounts to go on tree limbs or tiny tripods, and so on. GoPros are great because they are tiny and can mount anywhere. So what I do is put a GoPro out in front of me, facing me, to get all of the things I'm doing. And the Tacticam has a stabilizer mount for your bow where the camera is a perfect stabilizer. The mount is just like the frame of a stabilizer, and the Tacticam camera is the actual stabilizer itself, and it fits in perfectly if you guys want to check that one out. And for action cameras, I turn on as soon as I see a shooter walking towards me. So if I know I'm going to shoot it and it may give me a shot, I turn the cameras on, the Tacticam and the GoPro, just so I don't have to worry about them. It is one of the worst feelings when you shoot an animal and you think you were recording the whole time if you're just using a GoPro or a Tacticam, and you go to look at the footage later and it's like, well, where's all the damn footage? Oh, I guess I never hit record. So as soon as you see the animal, hit that GoPro on so it's recording and you don't have to worry about it. That's just how it works. And make sure with the GoPros, guys, that you mute the sound button, okay? If you click any button on a GoPro right now and you haven't touched like its initial settings, factory settings, then every time you click something or turn it on, it's going to go beep, 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 and it's going to make beeping noises every time you hit a button. All right, go into the settings and make it so it's just a silent camera. Every button you hit, there's no sound. Just make sure you do that. Once they're on and recording, you don't have to worry about them. Again, turn them on and then focus on your main camera and getting the shot on filming and be ready to shoot. All right, get the shot with your camera and then get the shot with your bow. Don't worry about the GoPros or the side cameras. And if you're in a tree, you're going to need a decent camera arm, and the cheapest arm for still a quality in price, in my experience, is a Muddy arm, a Muddy, M-U-D-D-Y, camera arm with one or two swiveling arms on it, and it has a level on it, so it's level up in the tree as well, and that way it won't just swing on its own while it's in the tree. And you can invest in a good one like a Fourth Arrow arm, but as long as they are smooth, quiet, and convenient, then use it. For anything on the ground, you're going to need a tripod, and these are cheaper than the camera arms generally, but make sure they aren't super cheap and cheesy. They got to be quiet and smooth. Nothing is worse than a creaky tripod, and that's really all you need to start out with. All right, later on, you get a good mic for your camcorder because you're always whispering in the tree, and maybe get a wind blocker because a lot of times you're up in the tree and you're trying to whisper and be quiet so you don't spook anything, so the camera can't hear you, and if it's windy, then it just sounds like this, and you don't want that. So maybe get a good wind blocker later on, but if you're just trying to get the shot on camera, you don't need any of that. And but if you're serious and you're trying to film, this is all you need to start out with. So pick a good tree with decent cover so you can get away with more movement, all right, in the tree. And make sure you have enough room and a long enough camera arm to get all angles in the tree. And for ground blinds, just set up the tripod, and it's easier in the ground blind to start out with. And that's really it, guys. All right, the camera arms, they can get really expensive, $200, $300, $400 on the really good ones, and the longer they come. And when I say pick a tree and have a camera arm, the tree that has a lot of cover and a camera arm to where you could get all the angles. All right, you don't want to be up in the tree and you have to like move your body and do a 360 and jack around the tree to try and get that camera arm out and around. All right, that's annoying when you have a camera arm in the wrong spot. You want to be able to have just 360 motion from standing in one spot on your camera, and all you got to do is just swivel the arm one way or another. And you don't want to pick a naked tree, because if you're up there and it's just bare bones and you're trying to move all this equipment around the tree, you may just get spotted. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So make sure you have a little bit of cover up there. Maybe just some nice foliage, whether it's open season or late season, dead, thick pines, whatever it may be. Or just switch to a ground blind once it comes late season. That way you get away with most movement, and you got the camera. You could sit in the blind. It's not going to be freezing up in that tree. So that's really it, guys. If you have any questions about self-filming, hit me up at obviously outdoorsmen@gmail.com. I will answer any of your questions that you may possibly have. But a lot of my earlier hunts were self-filmed. A lot of my hunts now are self-filmed. But recently, whenever we could get out with a buddy, or like Rob, Ray, Tyler, Naz, whenever anyone could come out with us, then we normally give them the camera. But a lot of times I'm the one behind the camera just trying to get the shot on film, and a lot of times I'm out hunting alone. So that's why a lot of the hunts normally are self-filmed. But either way, they come out the same if you do it correctly, whether you have someone hold the camera or you self-film. I know it may be a little harder and a little tougher and a little daunting for the people trying to start out with it, but definitely just pick up a camcorder, right? I like the Canon Vixias. All right, I'm looking to upgrade it to a little bit bigger of a camcorder just so I could get a better zoom ratio on it. But you really don't need any of that, all right? You pick up like a $200, $300, $400 camcorder, and you're good to go and you're set. Just take care of the camera, have some extra batteries, and just do it the right way. And if you're picking up this camcorder just to film for someone, or you're gonna have someone film for someone, like if you give it to like your buddy Tom and you give him the camera to film for you, then you really don't need a camera arm. But the camera arm is very convenient because it's always going to be in place. The only issue is with the rain, you can't really leave the camcorder on the camera arm unless you bring some type of bag or cover for it. And I've done that as well. I've left the camera on the camera arm while I'm hunting, while it started raining, and I just had a bag that I had, a clear bag, and I put it over the camcorder just so it wouldn't get wet and get ruined. So there's a bunch of variables you have to think about, and these smaller camcorders don't take up a lot of room in your bag. And normally if you're only hunting 1 or 2 tree stands, you just buy one camera arm and then you leave it up in the tree, and it's there. All you have to do is bring the camera in and out. But if you're hunting public land, I highly suggest just taking the extra time and lugging the camera arm in and out of the woods each hunt. You don't want that thing stolen, especially if you buy a better camera arm. You're going to feel devastated when they steal your stand, your camera arm, and your bow hangers, and just everything, and just throwing the camera arm in that is just going to suck. So that's really it, guys. Again, contact me. And if you guys are new to the First Light Talk series of the Obviously Outdoorsmen podcast, these podcasts come out every single morning between 6 and 8 a.m. on audio platforms, and the video version normally is out sometime between 6 and noon, but sometimes it will be out during the given day. The video version of the First Light Talks, it just takes longer to edit, so the audio version is up between 6 and 8 a.m. every morning, but the video version is up at some point throughout the day. And if you turn on the little bell, whether it be YouTube, or follow us on Instagram, or follow us on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be, if you turn on the little bell, especially on YouTube, you get notified when the video version of our video comes up. So whenever we post, you'll get notified. You could always unfollow us or turn off the bell and stay following us. Personal preference right there. I prefer you subscribe to us, all right? But you really don't have to. But I'm just trying to spread my knowledge to everyone I possibly could. And if I could help out someone versus them being ignorant to a certain subject, then I'm definitely going to help out. All right, guys, thank you for listening to FLT number 25. I hope you guys have a great day. Stay warm and keep slinging arrows, keep catching fish, and hit the gym, you damn fatties. Go work out. I'm Mike. Peace, guys.